Hey,
We
good
are
morning,
live
all of
right
you.
now.
Now we are live. Hemang, over to you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today on this webinar on the importance of IP as a business strategy for startups and MSMEs. Today we have a very exciting lineup of people who are here, and again, thank you to all the attendees for making time for this event. The fundamental reason for doing this webinar today is looking at how startups are progressing in India, certainly in the past couple of years. We all are used to seeing Shark Tank India, and I think because of that, a lot of great conversations are now starting. There's no denying that a startup is formed on the basis of identifying a gap, right? They find a gap in the market. They are not happy with the product, with the way it is working today, and they think there is a better way to solve that problem. And because of that, it leads to further innovations. And by nature, I think every startup works on a variety of innovations, and it's important to have an IP strategy as a part of your overall business plan. So today we plan to disseminate some of this information. And with that in mind, there's one program called as L2 Pro India. L2 Pro stands for Learn to Protect, Secure, and Maximize Your Innovations. I'll take a few minutes to tell you what this program is. It's a free resource, free reference material for every startup and MSME to use. So the SHM team, can you enable sharing for me, please? And while the sharing has been done, is being enabled in the background, uh, I'm very pleased to have an exciting lineup of speakers today. I'll give their detailed introductions later on, before they come to speak. But thank you so much, Shri Anal Roy from, METI. He's the program manager at the COE IP Center for METI. Thank you, Analji. We have Dr. Gargi Chakraborty. She's an associate professor at NLU Jodhpur. She holds, really amazing qualifications in terms of her research work, and we really look forward to hearing her remarks. So thank you and welcome, Dr. Gargi, to this webinar. And we also have a speaker from an exciting startup today. It's called Stellarian Semiconductors. We have Alok Joshi, who's one of the co-founders, and he's a VP of engineering there. Alok is an inventor. I've known him over the years. A brilliant mind working on a very innovative product. So, we'll hear different aspects of from, let's say, from a METI perspective, government perspective, from a research perspective, and from a startup. So with that, let me just take a few minutes and tell you what L2 Pro is about. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So L2 Pro is an initiative started by DPIIT and CPAN with NLU Delhi. So this is an IP e-learning program, which was, with the seed, for this program came from DPIIT. NLU Delhi is the academic partner. And, through Qualcomm, I've been running a startup incubator program for the past 6 years. So along, with our team's observations, we kind of knew what the gaps were in making sure startups understood intellectual property. And so we provided this input to them. And that led to the creation of this program where, it talks about how startups can increase their awareness and understand.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
You're on a presenter mode. You're not on a full screen, and that may just affect
My
the
presenter
experience.
screen.
Yeah,
Okay.
it may just affect the experience for people who are not on, who are viewing on a small screen.
Thank you, Anirban. I'll-
Thanks. This works.
Thank you. So L2 Pro is an IP e-learning platform specifically designed for startup founders, startup CTOs. The goal is to not make them IP professionals, but the goal is to make sure that they have the knowledge and the know-how to recognize an IP which is creating as they are operating their business. So it will help them in their understanding of how to protect their innovations with patents, especially for tech startups or startups which are looking at R&D. Patents are important. We have a number of startups which are working on good software, so how they can use copyrights, trademarks, the importance of IP considerations as a part of their business models, how to obtain value from their R&D efforts, and of course, most importantly, you want to bring these innovations to the market. The training is spread across 3 modules: uh, basic, intermediate, and advanced. So I think the basic module, going by experience, should be applicable to anyone and everyone. So everyone should take it. And for the ones of you who take more interest in that, you can go further deeper into how IP works. Our experience has been that so far L2 Pro India has been used by more than 3,500 students, and they are making progress through the course. Because it is meant to be a reference material, it is presented in such a format, right? So here I'm showing you some screenshots from the mobile version, from the app version of L2 Pro. So it looks and is designed to be very interactive. It has pop-up quizzes. Material is presented in a format that things are highlighted. We don't expect you to remember each and everything. No one is going to wake you up in the middle of the night and tell you, "Acha, tell me what is this particular date by which you have to file an application." But it's meant for you to look up the material. We also have like summary videos. So if there is something which interests you, there's an introduction video of about 2 minutes in duration and a summary video of around the same length. So let's say you can gain about 60-70% of the entire topic by just spending 5 minutes of your time, and then you can learn more information by going through the different aspects of the course. There's also a certificate which is generated on the successful completion of an assessment. And this certificate is provided to you by DPIT, CPAM, NLU Delhi, and Qualcomm. It's generated on the spot. And we've seen people who are sharing this on LinkedIn, right? So we have a number of these 3,500 plus students who are completing L2 Pro. So how do you get access to L2 Pro India? You can just go to our website, l2proindia.com, or you can download it on your phone by just searching for L2 Pro India on the app stores. So I really hope you take advantage of this. It's completely free. You have it. You can access it whenever you want. And of course, if you have any feedback, let us know. So with that, let me turn over the stage to Mr. Analji. So please allow me to stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Hemang, for giving me an opportunity to speak to you all on the importance of IP for startups and MSCs. So at the outset, I congratulate Hemang. I mean, L2 Pro, I found it a very interesting thing. And we have also certain schemes from MIT, which we perhaps could, if you could disseminate through L2 Pro, that could be a good idea. We would come to that. So I would look forward to some cooperation with you on this regard. Regarding dissemination.
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt. That is actually covered, actually in the first module. So we covered all the schemes. We are very familiar with the MIT schemes, and they are superbly, helpful for startups. So we do cover that.
Right.
If there's anything further, feel free to,
let us know. I found it very interesting. I mean, the schemes from MIT could also, aid the startups in getting in with the filing of IPRs.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon to all of you. Actually, my name is A.K. Roy. I mean, I apologize that Mr. Vichitendra Vijay Bhargava, CEO of MSH, who was supposed to join due to some last minute engagements, he could not join. So I have given the opportunity to speak to you. So before we start on speaking on IPL, let me say certain things about the how the startup ecosystem has changed from right from beginning of the 2021. It could be said that it has been a kind of watershed year for the startup ecosystem, with close to 100 unicorns, billion-dollar fundings, third largest ecosystem in the world. So the time is now ripe for the startup ecosystem to file for the IPRs. So what is happening is that from our experience, we find that still there are some lacunas and problems with respect to startups coming forward to file IPRs, especially for the patents. This has been our experience over the years from the COIP and SIP EIT schemes which we are running from MIT for the startups in this matter. So let me start with some fundamental questions as to why startups should file their or take care of their IPs. So, like the questions are, can patents help a startup defend itself against attacks by incumbent rivals? Can patents help a startup stop the theft of its innovation by large rivals? Can patents ensure a startup's freedom to operate? How does trademarks help in uh, forwarding the brand value? Can patents help startups to get ready for an IPO? So answer to all these questions are a big yes. So, and for startups, the concern is to keep a balanced approach within the limited budget to innovate and meet the market demands rapidly. Now coming to MSH, MSH as an arm of the Minister of Electronics and MIT is a kind of a game changer for scheme from MIT. So it is already in its pool having a pool of 3,000 startups, 51 incubators, 395 mentors, and 26 centers of excellences in our network. So, and within the MSH, there are two schemes which we specifically want to discuss here. That is, one is Center of Excellence in Intellectual Property, and the other is Support for International Patent Protection in IT. So how many of you, I think you don't know that COIP is a scheme which is in the running for almost 10 years now. And we are offering a free prior art search. The basic premise is, we are, constrained by the limited budget, but still within that ambit, we are offering a kind of a free patent prior art search reports for all the SMEs and innovators per se. So where if you send your patent search or prior art searches to us, it would be a free and neutral opinion, an unbiased opinion from the point of view of filing, whether you should file a patent or not is great. We assure you that, because most of the time it's seen that what is happening, startups who come with us with their queries, they feel that, sometimes the IPR lawyers or from the fraternity of IPR attorneys, they are trying to fleece them. Like suppose if you want to file a patent, they would say go for copyright. And if it's a pure copyright case, they would ask, why don't you file for patents? And in the midst, what happens that there is a lot of unnecessary loss of money by the research constrained startups. So towards this, we have started this, this endeavor, and we are already having more than 18,000 registered users for our portal. So this is one. And we, apart from, giving prior art, we also try to solve the prior arts, the IP related queries of these startups. So apart from this, another flagship scheme, which I specifically want to mention here, is the support for international patent protection in electronics and IT. So, and I tell you, Hemang and other panelists also, you could also disseminate about this scheme to your startup fraternity, that this scheme is specifically for supporting the international patent filings by startups, and the funding is provided to the tune of rupees 15 lakhs per invention, so which can be a substantial amount. And there are certain conditions which you could find in our website. I could provide you it later on. So this scheme has been in the offing for around 5 years now. It started in 2014. and it has now been given another run. Seeing its popularities, it has given another run for another 2 years. So it's still 2024. You can find the scheme from METI. And apart from this, METI Startup Hub is running a COE IP webinar series for the benefits of the startups. So this is for mostly for the startups who want to understand the topics and very different, different topics from IPR from their filing perspective. Why should they file IPRs? Why should patents? Why are patents important? Why are trademarks important to gain a brand boosting? So all these things are being taken care of. So I think with this, I like to close my remarks. So if in any question regarding the schemes, I am ready to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anil Royji. These are both actually wonderful incentives, and I've worked with the METI team, have interacted with them over the years, and we know how passionate, especially Dr. Garg and everyone at MSH is, for these IPR incentives. So if you don't mind us asking, and for the benefit of the attendees, what do they need to provide to avail, of, let's say, this international filing benefit?
Right. As I just said, if you could, for the benefit of all the listeners, I could say that ICT, if they could log into www.ict-ipr.in. The scheme details of CPIT are provided there. So basically what we are looking for is startups fulfilling certain criterias. They should be a DPIT recognized startup, and they should have this MSME confirmation to plant and machinery, certain things like 50 crores liabilities and assets. So, and it's a very, fluid scheme. So it's not something like, and our main endeavor is to provide, not to provide obstacles. So if there is certain things, they could always mail it to us, and we would be more than happy to get over the, if certain obstacles are there, we'll get over that and to help the startups. That I can assure you.
Thank you so much. And I think that prior art,
Yeah, prior art is another thing. I don't think any other agency in India is providing a service of this sort, where with all these, security aspects taken care of, and we are providing a free and fair and neutral, unbiased opinion on the patentability aspects of any invention. So from this data and from this report, they can decide for themselves whether they want to file for patents or go for copyrights or even go for a trade secrets, not filing any other thing. So we don't have any we don't have any takeaways from this. It's just a free service.
So dear attendees, please take advantage of that. We'll paste the link for the website and everything in the chat box as well. So we'll share this information to you. Thank you so much, Dr. Roy. Anirban, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I was if Dr. Roy could could put the link on the chat, that would be very helpful to the attendees.
Mr. Mukherjee, I'm just putting it.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Annaji, for your very kind remarks and sharing all passionately all these initiatives and incentives. We will certainly work with startups and MSMEs and funnel them your way. Thanks so much. So let me now invite our second speaker for the day, who is Dr. Gargi Chakraborty. She is an associate professor of law at National Law University, Jodhpur. Now, prior to that, she did her PhD from Nalsa University and MPhil from NLSIU Bangalore. She also has done her postdoctorate research at the Max Planck Institute of Innovation and Competition. Like, she's completed her LLM in international and comparative IP law from the London Metropolitan University. and of course a BSc LLB from University of Calcutta, India. Like knowing her work over the years, like she has fabulous teaching and research experience in IP law, and she has interest in other areas including competition law, cyber law, environment law. So Dr. Gargi, we are very, very happy and fortunate to have you, joining us today. Uh, so we'd like to hear from you on this topic, on the importance of IP for startups and MSMEs.
Thank you, Hemang, for kind introduction. Um, yes. So, I mean, startups or IP environment in India or MSME. Let's start with our National Intellectual Property Rights Policy. Okay, so where it is evidently saying that the mission statement that stimulate a dynamic, vibrant, and balanced intellectual property rights system in India to foster creativity and innovation and thereby promote entrepreneurship, enhance cultural development. So focus on enhancing access to healthcare, food security, environmental protection, among other sectors of vital social, economic, and technological importance. So through the development of the intellectual property rights with startups and MSMEs, we can, fulfill our mission, what we have said in the policy. So the thing is like that, generation of the IPR, which actually stimulate the whole process. So, we have the big pool of scientific and technological potentiality. Even we have the R&D capacity. Universities are there. So we know that IITs are working good and other engineering, IISc and other engineering institute. So the thing is like that, we can stimulate the intellectual property, um, uh, intellectual property rights. Now, if we are focusing on the research and innovators and corporate sectors also, we can tell that there are certain ambits. Going I'm going to say some orbit things also related with the plant genetic resources or animal genetic resources, some points based on that. Now, coming to the what is the implication of IPR for the startups and MSMEs? Already Dr. A.K. Roy mentioned that. So now we know it is mainly two ways. Firstly, how they can protect their creation. That is the one thing. To protect their own intellectual property rights. And secondly, how they can avoid violating intellectual property rights of is the second point. So the need to convert intellectual abilities into the intellectual property, uh, there is a need of a ecosystem for that. So IPR of a small enterprise may be, increased by somebody or created by somebody, and thus it stands to lose if it is not enabled to protect the IPRs. And secondly, knowingly and unknowingly, small enterprise if does not possess knowledge of it. So that's there. So of course, we have just talked about L2 Pro. Increased awareness could encourage the MSMEs and startups to make better use of IPR system. So the thing is like that, it is good for the market competition also. So IPRs will aid Indian MSMEs. The manpower, or if it is a limited resource. So in this competitive world, through the continuous growth and development oriented innovations, so it is also needed. Spending good lot of money on the R&D or that it has been done, so not to put the brain or money on that, or I can go for the license and then go for that particular innovations. So in this way, so if I know the IPR, I can take the strategy. That's the prominent thing. Now, example, if anyone is thinking, I want a very distinctive presence in the market, so I want to create the brand loyalty or customer pull for my product or service. So I'm thinking about trademark. Now, before knowing the registration, what could be the valid trademark? What the initial stage I need to work on that. So this planning, initial planning, and there are good lot of support system we have. I'm going to mention all those things. We can develop our thing. Now, even there are certain, very effective thing we need to know. There are certain interface also. Now, I can go for the industrial design for the shape, because functionality or technicalities dictated by that particular shape is not counted for shape trademark as well as for the industrial design. So there is some commonality in the criteria here. Now, why I should go for the trademark and why I should go for the industrial design? That could be the question. Now, Nescafe Red Cup is the iconic. It is having the ship mark. But Nescafe Gold Bottle is having the industrial design. The reason behind the big company, but the point is they want to change. So if they want to change, the shelf life of the product is less, it is better to go for the industrial design. If I'm looking for perpetuity, never ending game, I want so much distinctivity like Coca-Cola bottle or the red cup of the Nescafe. So it's better to go for the shape mark. So in these manners, minute details, of course, during the process is come to know, but it could be effective to take the decision what I should opt for. So that's the point. Now, another point, preventing competitors from copying or closely. So we know that the necessity of the IP protection is combating with the unfair competition, which is coming from the outside. Okay, so that's the one of the main thing we always need to remember. Now, through that, all this IPR, one particular entity is making its own identity also. Okay, through the trademark, through the branding strategy in this manner. Okay, so there are several ways to exploit all these things. Now, a simple example, the popularity of Chhota Bheem in our country is enormous. We know that every kid more or less love Chhota Bheem. Now, every possible merchandising, stationery goods, kids product, all these things having the Chhota Bheem. So in this manner, one character development also. We can, within the country, we have a very big market. That is why worldwide, people are looking for this typical market. We have a huge population also. Now, in a cost-effective manner, within, according to our socio-economy, according to our socio-cultural situation, but if we are just a bit vigilant, stop copying and bona fidely utilizing that particular character for the merchandising, it could be enormous business. Okay, so within India, even I'm talking about, and then it can accelerate to other places as well. Even franchising business, startup can be, they can go ahead with that particular concept. We know the success story of the good lot of franchising. All the typical chains are there working in a family. So it's not only the product market is having, also the service. So yeah, exploring to raise the brand value for that. Otherwise, why should the customer pull coming into that? So whenever we're talking about the commercialization, because IP can be successful whenever we are Now, it should not be the number game that I have, we have reached that particular number. So how much the commercial gain out of that IP we are getting, that is the matter of fact. So commercialization is the biggest point. We always keep in mind that particular thing. Now, through that, even co-branding. So we know the success story of Intel Insight and all the Lenovo, HP, everyone. So whenever we are purchasing any laptop, our decision making, it depends on which type of, what is the processor. So Intel is not as such practicing, but it's the co-branding. Same with the Dolby. Spotify and Nube. So I'm booking these are the models. I'm just as for the example I'm stating. So we can explore all these things whenever healthy or very good IP environment we could generate, and we can reach that particular, gradually we can reach that particular level, and through that we can reach the nation branding. Now, or other country, Ireland is really, they're dragging the FDI, they're putting their country at the face. So India is also, with the incredible India, we have our heritage, we have culture, and with all these things. So we can go, we can drag much more FDI, our travel and tourism also can increase. So in this manner, employment can increase. So good lot of things are coming into the way, linked with each other. Okay, so how we can negotiate the licensing? As I told, that maybe the R&D is not effective for, that blockbuster innovation or invention is not happening. So license agreement. So just nurturing the IP based contractual agreement. So this type of thing, we can think about that. So it can increase the market value, and acquiring the venture capital or enhancing the access to the finance, obtaining access to the new market. So in this manner, we can go ahead with that. So um, the point is, uh, we know that globalization has offered a business opportunity uh, for new target market and possibility to exploit technological advantage, as well as challenges in this process, also there. So how mainly from the scale of operation, technological obsolescence, institutional credit, now intense competition in the market. So all these things are also there. Now, the thing is like that we need enhance awareness about the intellectual property rights, which enable the startups and MSMEs to make informed decision. Okay, so they can develop in this manner. Now, the thing is like that government of India helping MSMEs in promoting in product and services. It also, we know that filing of the IP and reduced registration, filing fees also is one good way to move forward for that. So the whole objective is encourage and empower MSMEs to create value addition or building asset through effective exploitation and commercialization of IP. And it is not only the patent, design, trademark, copyright, but which one? Even the trade secret. So we should be very much vigilant about the non-disclosure agreement with the employer and employee. Maybe it's a strategic marketing strategy or something which cannot cover under that. So under the confidential information, we can cover all those things. Sometimes we are not really vigilant about all those things, so they're leaving the company and taking all the gain. So we can think from that perspective also. Now, to serve as a repository of IP information for MSMEs in the country, to establish networks in areas for use and sourcing the MSMEs and entrepreneurs. We can work on that. Okay, so IPR awareness campaigning and training to the sensitize MSMEs and startups on IP related issues. IPR informations and advisory services to foster the IP culture, and of course it could enhance the intellectual capital for the growth of MSMEs. So drafting and preparation of the specification of IPR application and proper, so now we have the patent information center, even the state government department on science and technology, they are taking care. As I'm from Rajasthan, so I know closely. So the department of science and technology, they are actually handling the IP aspects of Rajasthan. So awareness program, having consultant, so whoever interested for the filing, they're coming to that, giving. So in this manner, even in this respect, I just want to mention one thing. As I mentioned, some of the PR things. That, see, if any business is based on the geographical indication, correct? Now we know the sanctity and essence of the geographical indication is one of a kind, which is not really, I mean, uh, in same as the other intellectual property right, because it's a very specific geographical, so essential attributable characteristics are coming from the specific geographical location, correct? So the producers, the human factors or geographical factors is there, so we can't give the license, or it's not transferable to someone to manufacture it. It's that the community. So we are actually boosting the local community as the other country. I mean, small country like Georgia, based on one particular wine, they have developed their economic perspective. Just as a learning lesson, I'm giving that particular example. So we can develop our localized, I mean, age-old thing for without they have developed, and today they have having the GI protection. So not violating that internally. So what is the hand weaving thing? So don't do that, the computer digital printing. Okay, so keep the essence, but we can do the business. So what we can do as an authorized user, we can develop a bona fide website, e-commerce dedicated to the GI products, and we're giving the assurance with the quality maintaining thing to the customer. Yes, you can spend the money and you can get the authentic thing. Just the one thing, I'm just mentioning it through in this manner because it's a one of a kind and a very specific. We have to understand the essence and sanctity of the GI. So for the marketing and branding, we cannot say the producer can be someone else. No, producer is the one. But marketing, we can understand. Branding thing through the marketing, consistency in the quality, all these things we need to keep in mind. So in this manner, I'm just trying to say. Now, just as for example, again, as a just learning lesson, we can say that uh, uh, conventionally enterprise rely upon the physical asset of their growth, but over the years increasingly it is the IPRs which determine the growth and bottom line of the enterprise. So one example, acquisition of Motorola by Google, so 12.5 billion, was primarily for its patent portfolio of about 24,500 patents approximately. So Google retained the patent portfolio but sold the brand and the physical asset of Motorola to Lenovo, 3 billion US dollar. So this clearly shows that the importance of protecting IPRs. Value, we know, I have already clarified that particular things. So MSME and startup sector is one of the largest contributor to the Indian economy today. But somehow the adequate awareness, we're trying our best. I think gradually within a couple of years we will reach that particular thing, because India is very much known not a very IP friendly country, but we can gradually, we are developing day by day, and we will reach that particular height. So India government has taken various steps also for promoting knowledge and facilitating IPR protection among the MSME. Okay, so modernizing the IPR offices and digitization for filing application for protection of IPR, SIPAM, that Cell for IPR Promotion and Management in association with Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion to build a promote IP culture in the country with that particular objective. So, now, the Development Commissioner, MSME, had issued guidelines on implementation of the scheme building awareness of IPR for MSMEs. So all these things are there. Now, as I told that the government announced the reduction in fees for the filing IPR and for MSMEs and startups. So reduction amounted to about 60% in case of patent, 50% in case of designs, and the official fees of the trademark applications already reduced 50%. And we know that faster process also. So only the 3 adjournments and quick way to move about the filing, the total registration process. So here, encourage more and more MSMEs and IP startups to protect their IPs. Okay, so apart from that, there is a financial assistance for filing applications for IPR protection, 1 lakh for patents domestic and 5 lakhs for the international applications, up to 10,000 for trademark and 2 lakhs for GI registration. Okay, so in this manner. Now, another significant step, we can say that India government is formalizing of bilateral patent prosecution highway program. The program would help in reduction in disposal time and pendency of patent application, and an opportunity for the Indian inventor, including MSMEs and startup, to get an accelerated examination of their patent applications. Okay, so government already teamed up with the Japanese patent office for a pilot run for the 3 years. And same way, the MSMEs and startup can take benefit out of that particular thing. L2 Pro already discussed, so that's why I'm not mentioning it. So successfully, if implementation L2 Pro, already in Germany, UK, Italy, France. So now we are working, we are promoting the L2 Pro in India in our customized way to promote the innovations by MSME and startup. Now, Government of India has taken significant step to educate and encourage MSMEs to protect their IPRs. And it is important that MSMEs view on IPR protection as an investment to create an asset rather than the expense. That is very important. So sometimes the view is that it's just unnecessary expense. What's the point? What I will get? So as I worked for some small, just come up, so they're quite reluctant about that, because it's very difficult to, at the very moment giving the you can clear them the economic justification, but immediate effect, how much they can start earning from day one, it's not really feasible to say that. So that is another point we need to cover, that it's not a wastage of money. So creation of IP portfolio. So not only make an enterprise more competitive, but also enhance its valuation for future merger and acquisition. So furthermore, benefit they are going to get in this manner. So the thing is like that, protecting IP may also result in a competitive advantage. So competitive advantage is very crucial for any entity's growth and expansion. So for instance, getting a trademark for an MSME's product or service may reflect the quality that it accounts for. This would establish trust and goodwill associated with that when they're generating, because brand is a very holistic understanding of, much larger concept. Trademark is just one component of that. So the thing is like that, how they're creating the brand value. Consumer is the integral part of that. So accelerate the consumer royalty. Commercialization, we are going to, of course, for the commercialization, we are going to deal with the consumer end of the day. So protecting MSME's IP is an effective strategy to set it apart from other business in a particular industry. So, hello.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Gargi. I
Okay.
thought I was muted. My bad. Uh,
Okay, okay. No
sorry,
problem.
so I have to. Sorry to do this, but also a time check because you have to bring
Yeah.
up the
Just
next
I'm
speaker.
about to finish it. Okay.
Thank you.
So administration also. So that's also important. As I told, strategizing or planning what my assets are. Copyright. What type of IP subject matter I am looking for the protection. That audit is very important. I'm just finishing it. So I've already told the commercialization part. Of course, enforcement. Okay, so be vigilant. Anyone is, it's a private right to combat with the unfair competition. So all these things are there. So dispute resolutions also. Okay, so that's also very effective for that. So when we are sensitizing, so we need to, there could be a various way. Okay, so that's the another thing. Now we know that um, date is a support for the international patent protection in electronics and IT. The policy also proposed regulation of anti-competitive conduct in the market by the Competition Commission of India, which may be endorsed by licensing practices or conditions. So establishment of the commercial court to adjudicate IP dispute for effective adjudication also, that's the thing. In this manner, we are generating the human capital development also. So that's also the matter of fact. As I told, we are generating the employment, human capital also, recognizing or acknowledging the IP asset coming from the human capital. That's the matter of fact. Now, lastly, I just want to mention that startup intellectual property, SIPAM started that particular scheme to facilitating them. It was launched, that particular scheme launched 2016. Then apart from that, there is a technical and innovation support center from WIPO. They are also help all the member state to do that. So Technology and Innovation Support Center, TISC program. So creating an awareness, capacity building. So WIPO is also supporting them, providing practical training and tools for the staff, conducting IP training program, IP asset management, assistance in commercialization and strengthening technology transfer. So all these things there already. So SIPAM is the national focal point with that particular TISC of WIPO to contact with that several, as I mentioned, the Department of Science and Technology, several state government is also associated with that. Now, IP Facilitation Center for the MSME also there. I mean, IPR for micro, small, and medium enterprise, which is launched May 2010. They're also having a specific objective to boost up whatever we have discussed right now. And Science, Technology, and Innovation Policy 2020 is ITI policy also there. And draft already released. It is decentralized, bottom up, and inclusive. Aim to re-strategize the priorities of the sectoral focus method of research and technology development for larger socio-economic welfare. So that's there. Now, just one thing I just want to add up, because now we are developing the organic or food related industry and some. So if we know that Biological Diversity Act, access and benefit, so we want the development holistically. It's not a piecemeal. So whenever we are developing one, and cumulative development is coming up. So we have the interface with the Patent and Biological Diversity Act. So if any plant genetic resource base or animal genetic resource base, and if the traditional knowledge is coming into the way, so if innovation is coming, so there is a need of the approval from the National Biodiversity Authority. So this type of, which is very neglected thing, actually, we are not keeping at all um, this particular. But these industries are coming up, agricultural based industries are coming up like anything. So we can emphasize that. So then with everyone, it's not me only, with everyone we can develop our country. That is the thing. I'm just stopping here. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you so much, Dr. Garg. It clearly shows how passionate you are about IP. And I think one broad takeaway I want to have is that, especially if you look at it from a startup or an MSME perspective, it's a ripple effect you're creating, right? You can be looking at IP as just what your startup is doing, but then it has so many benefits. It leads to further R&D. It leads to further employment. Uh, you start contributing to the economy of the country. You may be just thinking for your company, but now it suddenly starts getting broader and broader. So thank you so much for sharing these insights. I think knowing you and the passion you have, I think you'll really like to hear from Alok and what Steradian Semiconductors are doing. Because just to introduce Alok, I'm proud to say he's an ex-colleague. Like I've known him when he was at Qualcomm for a few years, but in the past few years they founded a company called Steradian Semiconductors. Alok holds a rich experience, in the area of electronics, semiconductors, and RF design. And I won't talk too much about what Steradian does, but I think for especially all the attendees and the panelists, it's a great example of how a startup spotted an opportunity, like in the way, let's say radar imaging is done, or RF imaging is done, and how they are also making IP as a core part of their company strategy. So Alok, thank you so much for joining us here. I'd like to invite you and just I guess tell us about what you're doing, how you're approaching things.
Hey, thank you, Hemant, for your gracious words. Thank you very much. So, for everyone's knowledge, I have been a colleague of Hemant in Qualcomm. So, I think we joined on the same day, right? If I'm not wrong.
That's true. We did.
Yeah. So, I think we have known each other for a really long time now. When Hemant gave me opportunity to share my experiences, I just willingly took it over. So, Hemang, I have two or three slides. So, I have requested Bhavna to share it on my behalf. So maybe she
Sure.
can start presenting. So,
Alok, is it possible for you to switch on video?
yeah, sure, I can do that. My video might not be very good because of the network issue, but I'll switch it on anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Just let me know if you are able to see my video.
Yeah, we are not able to see a video, but we can see the slides. Thank you. Oh, Alok, yeah, you're there. Great.
Okay, fine. So I can say that I have seen the both side of the worlds. I have been in the MNC also for a long time, and now I'm a part of a startup. So I can give a perspective from both side of the things regarding the IPR. So Bhavna, maybe you can go to the next slide. Okay, so I'll try to broadly talk about the difference between the MNCs and the startup as far as the IPRs are concerned. And then secondly, I'll touch upon what should be the IPR strategy for the startups and MSMEs. And secondly, what is the advantage of having IPRs for a startup? So maybe we can go for the next slide, Bhavna. Okay, so let's start with the differences between MNCs and startups and MSMEs. Okay, so as we know, what are the key assets for the MNCs? Okay, so first thing is the employees. Any tech company, for example, say Qualcomm or Intel, if you take it, the key assets there is the employees. Employees are innovating, employees are contributing. That's when these companies make billions of dollars. It's as simple as that. The second asset is the intellectual property and the rights. Hemang can give you the exact numbers of how much Qualcomm makes with their CDMA patents, to be very precise. Then the third point is logistical support and systems. So, for example, the moment you are in MNC, typically all the things are taken care of, all the vendors, all the raw material, whatever the tools, support, everything is required. That all is at the uh, disposal of their employees and their designers. Now, fourth thing, which is not very talked about, is about the trade secrets. So, trade secret is something which companies don't usually go about telling out. Like, say, for example, doing a scratch free paint is a trade secret for Ferrari, and that they will guard it with their life. So Mercedes-Benz or BMW, they won't know what the hell Ferrari does and why their paint doesn't get any scratches on it. Then, for example, Ferrari tires of Italy, what they do for making their tires, all-weather tires which can sustain the heat of 500 kilometers per hour, only the tire company knows. They won't file patent on that. It's the trade secret. There are small techniques in the manufacturing, how they, what is the salt and pepper that they use in their recipe. That is what is the trade secret, and they hold it dear to them. Now, another last but very important point, which is a very much a big key asset for MNCs, is the investors and markets goodwill. For example, as Bhavna pointed out, Gargi pointed out, the moment we see Intel Inside, that's when we decide that we want to buy that laptop. Or the famous fruit symbol which we see on our laptops and iPads, that's when we decide we want to go for this particular iPad or a iPhone, correct? And we are ready to pay out of our noses for those products. So that is nothing but a brand value and the goodwill of a customer, which MNCs have. So now, as a startup, how do we compete with these advantages? Okay. So Bhavna, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So for a startup, also I am putting the same 5 points, but employees, yes. Now startup will have employees which is a handpicked, and they are a highly motivated lot of employees, because people come with some passion and motivation to work in startup generally. Then the intellectual property right, the second listed item, that is the, according to me at least, that is the biggest and the most tangible strength of any given startup. And to a certain extent, that is the deciding strength for any startup. Now, logistical support, if you compare to MNC, startup will have a really merged set of resources available to them. Trade secret, yeah, startup can definitely have a trade secret, but it is a work in progress, because trade secret is something which is developed over the time. How you perfect certain thing, how you develop a perfect methodology for doing certain thing. So a nascent startup is not expected to have a lot of trade secrets with them. And then the investor and market goodwill. So this point number 5 is directly proportional to point number 2 of this slide. The moment you have good IPRs, the moment you have good patent portfolio, that's when you will generate a good market goodwill and the investors goodwill. So the basic key thing for the startups is to have that kind of intellectual protection for them, which will enable the other points. We can go to the next slide now. So how can an IPR help the startups? So first thing is that It's more like this. Having an idea is a different thing, and commercializing that idea is altogether a different thing. So we can have an idea, but then in some technical conference or in certain customer meeting or something, if we end up shooting that idea to our customers or to our competitors or something like that, and if there is no patent protection on that, then no one stops them from really using that idea. So now, as we discussed earlier, for a startup, we started with one and only one key asset, that was our intellectual property. So if unless we have our patents protecting this intellectual property, these ideas are of no good use, because anyone and any thing, any customer, any guy can really walk away with your idea and leaving you nothing in the end of the day. Now, secondly, what the way patents help for this for any startups is that it creates a investor's goodwill. Because generally, what happens is that whenever there is some kind of investors coming to invest in a company, they always look for how the company is placed in terms of their technical strength. So, patent is the best example of the technical acumen of the company. So the moment there are some patents in the company's portfolio, that's when it is decided that, okay, this company looks to be having a good roadmap going forward. And of course, the patent always will keep the company in good stead with the world technology map. For example, not just for the investors, but for the hiring point of view and for attracting the talent in your company, it always helps to have the company on a good patent roadmap. The moment someone sees that your startup is having, say, maybe 50 cool patents granted to them, 50 cool ideas you are working on, that's when the topmost talents will be attracted in your company. And once the startup starts maturing to certain extent, patent will help in the bloating up the valuation of the company as well. So here I'm marking the two words, and if you notice, the quality has been marked as a thick font there, because having a patent of a very good quality is really mandatory for getting good valuations for your company. And of course, there is a quantity part as well. But see, all patents are not equal. There are certain patents which are really which have a very good financial returns. For example, in 1956, Jack Kilby, who was one of the lead inventors in Texas Instrument, he had a patent on developing the integrated circuits. So this is a kind of patent which really ushers in a lot of financial value for the company, because this is now we can see how the world has changed after this advent of these integrated circuits. So there is a one famous comparison. So if the Pentium 1 processor, which we have right now, which is at a size of maybe some kind of a pocket wallet or something like that, would have been like in size of a 3 football fields, and the entire Niagara Falls water which drains out of Niagara Fall, what that water would have been required to cool down that processor if it was implemented with the vacuum tubes. Now, the moment we had the integrated patents, IC patent created by Jack Kilby, the entire economic landscape of this semiconductor industry changed. So that's when I'm stressing the point of the quality of a patent. So the moment we have this good quality patents, that will really bring in a lot of value for the startup. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so let's see what are patents and what can be patented. It will be mostly a revision exercise for a lot of you guys, but nevertheless, let's go over it. So, courtesy vocabulary.com, the dictionary meaning of patent is something like this: a document granting an inventor sole rights to an invention. This is the dictionary meaning. But little bit more simpler meaning will be patent is nothing but any idea which can improve the existing prior art, existing stuff in the, and the schemes which are being used is not an obvious extension of the existing know-how. So that is what a patent means. Now, just to give an example, what cannot be patented. So any abstract idea, like say if I say that I want to patent a time travel, or for that matter, a teleporting device. So this is something which I cannot patent, because only some things which are scientifically proven and there is a tangible evidence of it, that are the things which can be patented. But having said that, teleporting and time travel cannot be patented, you obviously can go and patent any subblocks that you use, say, be it cyclotron or centrifuge, which can accelerate a particle to the speed of light or something like that. If you have a good ways of implementing these things, obviously you can go ahead and patent it. But saying that I have an idea of teleporting and I want to patent that, that might not get granted. Now, irrespective of whether you achieve your end goal of teleporting or time travel, it doesn't matter. If you have been granted patents on the small subblocks of this big machines, yes, they can be patented, and they can be also used for your future products, and also you can enforce these patents eventually. So do remember that, say, tomorrow if I go and say that I want to design a car which can attain maybe 1500 kilometers per hour on a road or something like that, obviously I cannot patent that car. But if I come up with an internal combustion engine to accomplish that car, if I come up with a innovative way of designing a tires which can sustain that heat, I can patent all those things. And of course, I can use these patents for other parallel industry. No one stops me from doing that. And in the process, it doesn't matter even if I am not able to make that 1500 kilometer per hour car. So maybe let's go to the next slide regarding. Okay, so ranking of a patent. So this is one very important aspect where every startup should look for, because filing and defending patent is also not actually a very cheap job. There are certain attorneys fees associated with it, and patent office committee fees and all those things. So as a startup and MSMEs, when the resources are not in abundance, we should always look for these 3 points when we go for any patent. First is the detectability. No matter even if what detectability means is that how can this patent be, how can you possibly detect the infringement of your patent in any of your competitors' work? Is this patent something which is detectable, or it is not detectable? It is, say, for example, it's a part of a code where only one small line being modified in a code, and then that's it. That is the patent. Then probably that this kind of a patent is not very detectable. So then the simple thing for startups to do is that rather than patenting this idea and exposing it up, they can always go keep it as a trade secret. Then usability. So is this patent usable to your competitors? Can they use this patent directly, or can they find out a workaround for this patent? So if if there are say 10 ways of solving one given problem, and you are patenting only one way of it, then probably that's not a worth of investment, because there are still 9 ways available for your competitors to work around your idea. But if there is only one unique way of solving a problem, then definitely that is patented, that should be patented, because that way you are kind of restricting all your competition from taking that approach. And the third big point is the revenue potential. So as I mentioned previously, the Jack Kilby's patent. So as a startup, we should always look for the patents which have kind of a very high revenue value, which will give a good revenue for the company in terms of either licensing agreements or royalty income, or maybe just prevent the competition from getting into those products. So always as a startup, please keep these 3 things in mind whenever you go for patenting things, rather than patenting everything and everything under the sky. So maybe I just have one more slide introducing our company. Okay, so this is our team picture. So we started with 5 of us, which had some good experience in the TI and Qualcomm, and then we came up with this, our company Steradian Semiconductor. So what we usually do is that we are trying to do a automobile radar. So it's what we call it as a imaging radar. So we hope to see, try to match a LiDAR kind of or camera kind of visibility with the radars. So that is what our end goal is, and I think we are working towards that right now. So I think that's it from my side. So if any questions are there, maybe we can take it now.
Yeah, Alok, thanks much. That was very energetic and a really like practical way of how startups should look at patents. I think that this is
Great work.
to me it was like a game changer. So I think one of knowing you all over the years, one of the first things which impressed us was, how did you keep IP, or how did you treat that when you started the company? Did you say that everything we do, we first go for patents, or was it the other way around? That you started working on something and then someone said, hey, by the way, you should file patents on it.
Yeah, so that usually what approach we do is that it's similar to the way we used to work in Qualcomm. So first of all, we know we have a problem on our hands. So we are trying to fix the problem. Now, once the problem is identified, there will be some good solution coming up for solving that problem. And then we internally kind of discuss it. Is this solution worth patenting, or can we just, is it something which is really very obvious on the available prior arts? Then we don't go ahead and waste our time in filing those ideas as a patents. But whatever we feel is a good idea which can be patented, we go ahead and then just go file that idea as a patents. And then another thing that we, as a startup, we always are very cognizant about is that how is the cross-dimensional usability of our patents, not just for uh, the particular 80 gigahertz IC that we are working on, but can these patents be used in the another parallel markets like maybe the 5G communications or something like that. So these are the patents which we rank above the other ideas where we can have a cross-market coverage so that it can have a opportunity to usher in more revenue down the line.
Wonderful. Thanks, Alok. I think there's a question which has come for Dr. Gargi. Dr. Gargi, if you're there, I think the question is, what are the common mistakes people make with tech transfer? What should be a checklist of, for doing a tech transfer, and how should a startup or an MSME look at this? This question is from Mauri Ghosh.
Is among in the tech transfer, uh, whenever we are entering in the agreement, okay, tech transfer agreement. So whatever it's not about one subject matter of the IP, maybe good lot of subject matter of IP is coming. So we should be clear on that. Even what if any dispute happen, so how I'm going to mitigate that? It could be the mediation or it could be the litigation. Though the IP indemnity is not really nurtured in India, so the thing is like that in the license agreement, even if we can nurture gradually the IP indemnity even, so during is not the same. I mean, transferor and transferee. Then also we should be very much vigilant about whatever the clause we are mentioning during that particular paper, the legal paper. Obviously, the legal person is the matter of fact as well as the technical person. It's a techno-legal thing. So the thing is like that technical person can clarify the technical aspects. So they should clear it up, what is the requirement, what they're looking for, all these aspects. And lawyer need to understand the technical aspects, and according to that, the legal clauses and the agreement is very much necessary. So if we are vigilant about the agreement whenever we are drafting that, then I think we can skip the minute wrong or something. We can mitigate that particular issue. That's very.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Gargi. Alok, there are a couple of questions for you. Uh, so, so one from Deepali Jadia is to elaborate on the detectability example. Like, can you
Okay, so let me give an example. Say, assume that we have our cell phone. Okay, I don't know whether you heard about this big patent fight between Apple and Samsung, where Apple had some patent for rounding up the corners of the cell phone, which Samsung was contesting it. So detectability necessarily means can the usage of this patent be easily detected in your competitor's work? Say, for example, let's take there is something called as a Wankel engine. Maybe someone you can just Google it out. So what it means is that instead of having a linear IC engine, it is a circular in shape. Okay, and it has certain advantages of better torque and better fuel efficiency. Now, the moment you open up any car and there is a there is a, what do you call it, suspicious use of this Wankel engine's idea in a given automobile. Just opening up that engine will reveal it that this is a circularly done pistons are arranged in a given fashion. So they are infringing on the given patent. So that is what detectability necessarily means. Can you easily rip up your competitor's work and find out whether he is infringing on your IPR or not? Whereas there can be, as the favorite example that Hemang always gives, the Coca-Cola's formula, or for example, Maggie's formula. So just by drinking Coca-Cola or just by drinking some any other drink, you know that taste is different, but you won't realize that what exact part of your invention has been copied there. So these are the patents which are less detectable, and then it's not a good idea to patent these things, but rather use them as a trade secret.
Uh, I have a follow-up question here, Alok.
Yeah.
The thing is that, see, maybe if you patent it, you cannot detect somebody else whether he has used it or not. But let us look at that, somebody else patents it, and then, he files a infringement suit against you. Because maybe, he has better resources or something, or maybe he can, tie you down in lawsuits. So if you patent even a thing which is not detectable so easily, it can actually, protect you from these kind of lawsuits. So it's more a defensive patent than an offensive patent. How would
That
you kind of react to that?
that is actually a very good point. That exactly is the reason why generally, even if we say that patents are not detectable, then why do we file it? We end up filing some of the patents because we know that we are not going to be able to enforce these patents because they are not detectable or something like that. But then we know that if someone does something like this, virtually we don't have defense on those lines. Then we kind of end up either. So typically in that case, the better strategy is rather than exactly writing down the entire recipe on a patent, you write it in a broad sense. Like for example, if, say I'll take an example of some chemical reaction or something like that, which we assume that it will work at say temperature range of say maybe 150 C or something like that. Then in that, while writing a patent, we try to make it more generic. That entire temperature range from say minus 30 to 180 or something, this is supposed to work, something like that. So then there is a in this particular cases, it becomes little tricky because there is a kind of a fine balance that we have to meet. With one hand, we have to protect our own trade secret, and with other hand, we have to ensure that someone else doesn't come up with the idea and sue us back for that. So yeah, it's a case by case basis. We have to very carefully decide how much we are going
Right.
to reveal in a patent and how much we are going to hide for ourselves.
Sure. Great insights, Alok. Great insights.
Thank you. We have time for one last question, and this question has come from Sagar. Is how do you determine, what to put in a single patent? Like, how do you decide that okay, I have two or
Okay,
three
I think
things, they all go into one patent, or do you rather split them
yeah,
apart?
this is actually a very good question, Sagar. So let me just try to elaborate on it. Now, two things. One is that, as I mentioned earlier, patents are kind of a costly affair, at least for the startups, because each patent comes with its own attorney's fee and filing fees. Okay, so there always will be a tempting attraction for a startup to go and just combine three, four ideas and file a patent on that. Obviously, there will be a tempting preposition for this way. But let me just try to explain the pitfalls of this idea. See, if there is a one big design block that you have done, and say four distinct patents can be generated out of that work, it is always better to go and file these four distinct patents because that way, first, your patent portfolio increases, and secondly, these four patents on their own can be enforced on some parallel markets rather than having one big patent covering the entire design on its own. And usually patent office also kind of rejects this kind of approach because they also realize that okay, in accomplishing this big thing, there are four or five good ideas which have been implemented. So patent office themselves will try to tell you that okay, why don't you just apply it like a four different patents rather than one big patent on a given thing. So it's
Great.
more of a
Thanks
case
so much.
by case basis. So if you think that uh, multiple inventions can come out of your work, you better go and take that approach, because that way you have more coverage on the technical aspects of the product.
Sure. Thank you, Alok. That was, again, a wonderful practical insight. And I hope all the, attendees today, all the participants today found today's session very useful, very helpful.
Hemant, I mean, we have a couple of minutes. Why don't you answer Harish's question, which is, he has asked any
I
thoughts on
didn't see.
killing if innovation due to obvious patents and anything being done to stop
Okay.
patents being given. It's a really interesting
Sure.
question.
So, Anishi, I think if I understand this correctly, I think we trust the patent offices around the world. Like the India Patent Office has a very thorough examination procedure, and they evaluate the criteria as Alok was sharing. Now, there are three broad criteria that they use. Uh, One is novelty. A question which they ask uh, is a key question: is this invention obvious or not? And if it's an obvious one, there's a very rigorous procedure that they use to determine this. And the third parameter they use is this invention useful? So in Alok's slides, he gave a few examples, right? Of maybe there's something which is out there that doesn't make sense today. But if there are ways that you can demonstrate that, hey, this that's an combustion engine today could be useful. Is there a utility factor? So they look at these three parameters: novelty, obviousness, and whether there is utility. Only after these three criteria are met, they grant the patent. So,
And
so in that, yeah. Please go ahead.
yeah, please, Hemang, you can complete. Maybe I'll wait.
No, I think the evaluation is quite thorough, and certainly for India and for the major patent offices around the world.
Yeah, and adding to what Hemang just said, one more point I would like to mention here. The moment patent office realizes that probably one only way for doing certain thing has been patented by a given company or a startup, right? Then patent office around the world are also cognizant to that path. And what they eventually do is that then rather than having a very unfriendly royalty fees and all, there is a kind of a mediation and negotiations which happen, where what they say is that, hey, I know that you have patented this thing, and this particular idea is the critical idea for implementing the end goal. So let's do one thing. Let's come up with some favorable revenue sharing model. So it will never happen that if one company has patented a very critical part of the entire big design, and that company always will keep reaping the advantage of that patent. That will never happen. So that company who is the owner of that patent, they will be eventually forced by the patent offices to share their patents and come up with some mutually beneficial royalty sharing schemes. So same thing has happened with the TI's integrated circuit design patent also. TI on their own, they were not able to use that patent. They eventually had to share it with their competitors.
Sure. Thank you. I think this session is very well received. I can see there's a fair amount of activity, in the chat box. I think I don't have time to pick those up because we are right at the dot. I would love to, but I think the broad message, right, referring to the chatbot comments and questions, are that this is a great time to be IP aware in India. There are a lot of resources for startups. So I would point you to the Startup India website. There are very helpful resources there. As Shri Anil Kumar Roy has shared, MeitY also has a number of helpful resources. Take advantage of those. CPAM is doing fabulous work in teaching people, on how to be more IP aware across sector, right? We have someone who's asking questions on bakery products. So IP does play a role out there, and IP is broader. It's not just patents, right? It includes trademarks. It includes GI tags. It includes, designs. So all these factors do come into play. To disseminate all this information, we have this program called L2 Pro. Check it out. It's completely free to use. L2proindia.com. We have pasted the link in the chat box, and through AstroCham, we'll circulate it to all of you as well. But today we are right at the dot of time, and I firstly thank all our speakers today. Shri Anil Kumar Roy, Dr. Gargi, Alok, thank you so much for all your kind comments. Thank you to the AstroCham team for a fabulous organizing of this. Thanks to my colleague Anarban, who's like a key partner in crime, right, for everything that we are doing. And of course, thanks to all the attendees. It's a wonderful afternoon. Please stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. See you.
Thanks, Hemant.
Thank you.